Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Good to see a few of you online already. Early bird gets the worm. Morning, David. Got Luke in the house. Catherine's there. Morning, Sharon. Oh, I was jealous, Sharon. Missed you guys. Would love to come up to Cairns. Couldn't fit it in this time. Great to see you all on this morning, team. As we get going, do the little intros. Hey, morning, Graham. Anyone who's new, if you're new, give us a shout out in the chat. Even if you're not new, give us a shout out in the chat. Jason Witten's my name. If you didn't already know it, most of you do. Been doing these Wealth Coffee Chats with some mad, keen property investors, maybe just like you for a little while. So welcome along. And each weekday anyway, we try and get together and do this about 10 past 8. So if this is your first time wandering by, finding us, you might have joined our mentoring program recently, whatever it is, welcome. Fantastic to have you. Get yourself subscribed, tuned in every day, YouTube, Facebook, mostly, YouTube, Facebook. And if you do miss it, there's replays. And if you want to subscribe, it's a podcast. It's on Spotify and iTunes and Google Play and whatever. You can find it somewhere, I'm sure. Spotify I find's easiest. But anyway, whatever you're into. Great to have you here, folks. Thanks for joining us. Hey, listen, breaking records everywhere. It's been crazy, interesting times. I think I say that every time every time we get together for this Wealth Coffee Chat. Crazy, interesting times. Record. 400,000. Biggest ever. What do you think it is? Tell me in the chat. What do you think the record that's broken right now? We have broken. Hey, morning, Rose. Good to see you. What do you reckon? Chuck it in the chat. Who thinks they've got a guess? It's one of the key drivers, the 6 key drivers. What do you reckon? What record have we broken? We're good at breaking records of recent times. Not necessarily all records are fantastic to break, lowest supply ever. That's not a good record to break, Lowest vacancies, well, depends on which side of the coin you're on, et cetera, et cetera. Boom, Luke is all over it this morning. Immigration, folks, temporary and permanent. We are off and cracking 400,000. And we'll talk about that in a second. So stick with us. We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about our population. And really, we're going to talk about what's that mean to us? What's going to happen, folks? We already know this is underway. Listen, I talked about this ages ago. And it's not very difficult when you concentrate on a certain little niche in your sort of in your space, this property space, this population space, and kind of collect the info and put it all together to see really what's going on. A lot of people think it's a mystery, it's a crystal ball. You don't control things, but you can see things if you understand which bits influence what bits. When it comes to real estate and population, more people than properties equals rents going up, then equals values going up, etc. So anyway, good morning, Melinda. Great to have you here. Let's talk about that. Let's quickly dive into the first part of today, which I think would be worth having a look at, is let's set the scene with the key drivers. All right, let's have a look at this. What are the key drivers, folks? Jump in the chat for me. There are 6 key drivers, and we just talked about one then, the population. The population is one of the major 6 key drivers in the world of real estate values, these levers that get pulled back and forth that can affect our rents, that can affect our values. Let me know. Number 1, INT, giving it away, but dive into the chat and put it in the chat. You can see them up on the screen. Let me know if you think you know what they are. All right, interest rates. Interest. Is that how you spell it? I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, my dyslexia is kicking in. Interest rates. You're dead right, Melinda. What we have, folks, is we have had a record. What record have we broken in interest rates? The quickest, the fastest increase in the cash rate ever recorded. The fastest increase. So the time frame that it's recorded, right? Record. Boom. Record, folks. All right, let's talk about this. Population. Well, you just saw it. We've broken a record. The largest increase, 10 in a row. Yeah, exactly. The most in a row and the fastest, folks, when you have a look at the data. So like we're breaking records everywhere. Supply and demand. All right, let's go. Let's do this. Number 3, supply and demand. Demand. All right, what's going on? Worst supply chain ever, right? So we've broken a record. It's gone down. Record. It's the lowest all over the place, which is like some of this stuff's really sad. The most builders to go broke, ever in 1 year, just blow my mind, right? Well, now, number 4, I don't know if anyone knows what this is. The politicians. Maybe we could. Maybe what record did they break? What record did one of the politicians in Victoria break? I think let's make the narrative. Let's make the narrative fit where we are. All right. Okay. I'm gonna record lockdown. Record lockdown. Lockdown. Anyway, good on you, Andrew. What was his name? Yeah, there you go. Next, employment. What do we got here, folks? Sharon's saying it. Right, record unemployment. So that's down, but it's a record. All right, and infrastructure. Why am I talking about infrastructure? Infrastructure means where are we spending the money? And we have record interest rates. Woo, check that out, folks. Anyway, I made up the politician bit on the fly, but we have got some drivers going on, and there's records all over the place. Record lowest vacancy rates, right? In supply and demand. Just crazy times. Anyway, there you go. There's the scene. It's been set, folks. And the one thing that's holding the lid on this the one thing that's holding the lid on, this is the interest rates right now. Okay. And probably the politicians, to be honest. They're maniacs. Can't control them, can we? Anyway, let's talk about the one I wanted to talk about today, which is politicians. No, not politicians. The population. Population. Crazy times. Things happening. And for us as investors, what does that mean, right? More than 220,000 international students have moved into Australia in the first 9 months of the year. Record migration, folks. Record 400,000. Biggest ever. And we talked about this the other day. We had a bit of a chat about students. But one of the benefits, one of the things that this student stuff is giving us right now is that the students are landing in 2 cities majorly. What's the most popular city in Australia for students, folks? Does anyone know the most popular, and especially from the number one student migration at the moment, or immigration? Number one student immigration is from India. And what's their favorite town? What's their favorite city in Australia to go to? There are 2. Boom. Melbourne, right? And you saw those stats the other day, right? The vacancy rate in Melbourne now is the second lowest in the country. Second lowest. And it's going to get lower, folks. Crazy. Melbourne, Sid, and then Bris, right? Okay. But Melbourne by a country mile, by almost like 50% more, folks, which is interesting, all right? Which is good. Look at that. Anyway, from a low, which is sort of climbed all the way back up to 400,000. So quite a large increase. But in reality, let's have a look at this, folks. If we were to continue, our 200,000 a year, it's kind of like just making up for what we didn't do, in 2020 and 21, potentially. So if we were meant to go, 2020, 200, if we're meant to go 2021, 200, and then 2022, 200, what should we expect, team? What should we expect in the next 12 months? Just do the math. I reckon, I'm going to chuck this one out there. I think we will see another 350 to 400,000 in the next little bit, because the government's attitude from for quite a while, to be honest, has been, hey, our natural population isn't keeping up. We need to bring enough new people into another 400. That's what I'm thinking, Bradley. Right? It's called what's it called? Sam talks about this all the time. It's called mean reversion. I'm pretty sure that's how you spell it. Mean reversion, which means it was headed there anyway. And just because it stopped doesn't mean it's gone forever. It's like what's going on right now. Like, okay, interest rates go up, and then people purchasing properties, the P's, stop. There's less people out in the market because, interest rates are high and they're worried about things. Now, did they go away? Are they never going to buy a property? No, they just stop and wait. So what will happen now? We'll have record people getting into the market. Well, I mean, not necessarily long-term records, but, the last year was low, and then it will make it up. The buyers don't go away. The demand doesn't go away. It gets paused, and then it comes back. This is what's happening with our population. And we'll talk about what does this mean to us as investors here. Lots of students coming into the country, big student, and temporary work, holiday makers, et cetera, and that's quite interesting. How many students in Australia right now? And this is the visas. So this is cumulative 20, 21, 22, 23. Now, student visas. You can be here for a number of years. You can do a certain amount of work. There was a little, there's a little sort of loophole in the student visas where people were getting student visas coming to Australia and not going to uni, not being a student and just working full time. The government's going to tighten that one up. So keep an eye out for that. But here's where we, as property investors, and maybe making a intelligent analysis of this information and how we can maybe benefit or use it to guide our purchasing and investment decisions. The number one skilled migration program in Australia is registered nurses. Registered nurses, like, that's the one. And we've got lots. Our population is aging. We've got lots and lots of there's shortages in nursing and skilled nurses everywhere. But let's ask the question. So if we're saying, all right, the skilled nurses, and then you got software and app programmers, whatever, and accountants. Look at that. Yeah, that one's actually pretty tough. Chefs. But let's look at this. Registered nurses, folks. Let's join some investment ideas to that. So what would you ask yourself? What would be a question you'd ask yourself as an investor? All right, nurses. Okay, they earn good money. Where are they going to go? What is the major places that they would go? And I'd say, well, let's have a look at the biggest. Let's have a look at the biggest hospitals in Australia. Like where are they? And Sam talks about this all the time. There's a number of belts, right? Where do nurses want to live? Exactly, Sonia. Well, most of them would probably want to live as close as they can to where they work. I know that for a fact with hospitals. And then Sam, yep, that's it, Sharon. Sam talks about these belts all the time, right? These belts of investment, right? So there's the green belt. There's the water belt or the ocean belt or the beach belt or whatever it's called. There's the medical belt, and the I'm having a mental blank now. Who remembers the belts? I think it's something to do with the jobs belt or something, the employment belt or whatever. So these belts are where education. It was education. Education. Anyway, so there's these kind of areas where these things happen, right? So nurses also need childcare. Exactly, Sonia. Schools, dead right. School belt. That's right. Having a brain dead moment. Not enough coffee yet. Not enough coffee. So we have all these belts. Sand belt. That's right. Instead of the beach. Might have to sharpen myself up on Sam's stuff. But anyway, let's have a look. Well, where are they? Where are these nurses? And what are they doing? Well, let's go and have a look at the 10 biggest hospitals in Australia, folks. Royal Brisbane Women's Hospital. Number 1. Gold Coast University. Number 2. Hey, does anyone know? I don't know if you know this. There is the Gold Coast is considered a regional location. It's an easier visa to get for migration. So too is Newcastle. So too is Wollongong. So too is the Sunshine Coast. So too is Toowoomba. There's these regional locations which are far easier to get visas for. Anyway, keep that on your mind. All right. There's all the big hospitals. But where, folks, where is the biggest hospital project in history being constructed or underway right now? Does anyone know? Anyone know where the biggest hospital project is? And this town is purported to be turned into one of the big ones. Anyway, I'll put you out in misery. Footscray. Check it out, folks. The biggest hospital project in Australia's history. Breaking records again. Records everywhere. Records. There we go. The Andrews Labor government will deliver the biggest hospital project in Australian history with massive upgrades to the Royal Melbourne Hospital, the Royal Women's Hospital, and an Arden Medical Precinct. There you go. and it's going to be connected by a train line. Crazy. Folks, there you go. Okay, we got the biggest one in history in Melbourne. So for me, for you as an investor, if we're thinking, all right, well, where do we invest? What do we do? That's not a bad idea. Where are these major projects? Where are these hospitals? Where do nurses and doctors and other people need to live? I know one of my mentoring and coaching coaches, Megan. She has an amazing property up in Brisbane that she Airbnbs right next to the hospital up there, the Royal William, and she crushes it, kills it, absolutely knocks it out of the park. So, these things here. Temporary migration has doubled since 2007. So, 2 million. Temporary is like working visas and stuff like that. As we go, there's more competition for permanent migration as well, which is interesting. So, where is that? You have a look at what's coming in, who's making up the part of it, which is, always worth understanding. But here's a couple of things, and we'll finish with this. So, what does that mean to us as investors? Well, populations, actually, we'll do this. What happens when house prices, when the mortgage price increases? Well, it went down a little bit. What happens when population increases by 1%? What happens when population increases by 1%, team? Then, boom, have a look at that, right? A value increase. So for all of us as investors, we go, right, what does it look like? Where are we going to be? What are we going to do? What are we going to get a piece of? Get in place right now, because most of the population is still reeling from the interest rate rises, and fair cop, it's going to stay high for the rest of the year, interest rates, and some inflation is still going to, cause some effects on things. So, there's that. But a couple of things to watch out for as investors. Check it out. Okay. This is that little issue that the education visas have been working on. So education, Australia's $40 billion education, that's not bad, sector is set for a shake-up. The government attempts to sift the genuine students from those who use the education visa as a backdoor visa to work, right? So keep an eye out on that. I'm not quite sure how they're going to do it, but we'll see. I think they've got bigger fish to fry, to be honest. One thing, here's something, folks, and I don't know if anyone's been watching this. The government set like a temporary skilled visas, a temporary working visas, a temporary one, skilled visa, like they set a certain visa at an earning limit, right? So a wage limit. So in the past, it was $57,000, right? And there's a bunch of other things attached to this temporary working visa thing. But in the past, it was set, and 10 years ago, it was set at 57 and has not changed. It was meant to be indexed. Government said they would, and fancy that, they didn't, et cetera, et cetera. So, 10, 12 years later, inflation and so on, temporary skilled working visas was still, and still as today, fixed at $57,000. Now, why do I bring this up for? Totally needs to change, Sonia. Totally needs to change. So there's a proposal to change it. There's a bit of stuff going on. Keep an eye on it. But what will happen? Now, it should have been changing incrementally, folks. Well, it should have been changing incrementally, right? This is the thing. The politicians kick it down the road, for later, and it becomes a problem. They're not, they're cowards. They don't do the thing when they need to, and then when they do it, they do it and it hurts people. Anyway, what's the downside of this? Which it needs to happen. Not arguing about the minimum wage in any way, shape, or form. But what's the downside of this in one foul swoop? It should have been indexed. It should have happened over 10 years incrementally. It should have already been 70,000, right? What happens now? So that shock goes into the system wherever these people are working, so there's a negative to it in temporary terms where wherever they work, people will want to be paid more. Those businesses can't afford it. And there'll be a challenge, a problem. But what happens if they get through that initial shock? The price increases will pass on to the customer, and that will fuel inflation. Inflation, right? So that just makes inflation go up or add to inflation. So anyway, they should have done it before. They're doing it now. Keep an eye on it. On the flip side, folks, what does it mean? If someone's getting paid more, who wins out of that? Well, first, we'll do this one tomorrow. The government gets more taxes. Happy days. Another way of them getting more tax from us. Anyway, there you go. But also, people have more money to pay for rent and mortgages, folks. Mortgages. People have more money to pay for rent. So on the flip side, we're getting a benefit. Anyway, there you go. Hopefully that made sense today, folks. Population is huge. For us as investors, we can be on the right side of the ledger for our goals, which is property investing. And if we understand a few of these things, certainly one of the ideas in this takeaway is certainly where hospitals are in Australia, the major cities, certainly Brisbane and Melbourne, are huge and a great opportunity to invest around for significant rentals, for significant value. So there you go. One thing to maybe have a look at. That's it. That's it from me. We're done. Wealth Coffee Chat over and out. Population is huge. It's going to continue. What are we doing about it? Get on the right side of it, folks. What I can tell you, and I've been saying this for a little while now, now's a great time to purchase. If you can, you should. You can. Seriously, don't muck around, because in a year's time, you're going to be paying $50,000 to $100,000 more than you are paying right now. Not kidding. Not kidding. Because it has to happen, folks. It's going to happen. The demand part will be significantly more than the supply for the next 5 years, if not beyond. The government has no idea how to fix it. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, folks, that's it. Wealth Coffee Chat, done and dusted. Went a bit late today. A fair bit to talk about. Anyway, I don't know. I try to keep it to 20 minutes and I never do. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, hey? All right, folks, done. Over and out. Thanks for joining me. Join me again tomorrow for another one. Till then, bye for now, folks. Wrong button.